Well, listen, we don't really look to satisfy one administration or the other. We look to make sure that we're doing the best we can, using our shareholders' money appropriately, finding advantaged projects that allow us to grow production and grow value. We're also looking at reducing our emissions. We announced in this quarter the largest of its kind carbon capture and storage partnership with CF Industries, where we will transport and permanently store CO2. That's a project that makes us money while reducing emissions. It's good for the planet. It's good for our shareholders.
But when you're looking at these numbers, I mean, you pointed out that you all were investing. That was your plan, to invest over the last couple of years, even when energy prices were much lower. You feel some vindication at this point? Your stock just reached an all-time high last week, and if these levels hold, it's going to open at an even higher level this morning. Is this vindication in what you've been doing, Darren?
Well, you know, Becky, you and I have talked about this over the years. We stay very focused on the long-term fundamentals, try to understand where the economies are going, what's the need going to be for the products that we produce, and then in anticipation of that, try to invest in projects that give us an advantage. And so I would just say it's a vindication of this longer-term philosophy of focusing on the fundamentals, trying to address what I would say is a wide gamut of needs from society. Some of that has to do with energy and the products that we produce. Some of it is with reducing CO2 and emissions. And we can do both. This is an and equation, not either or.
Darren, if you focus on long-term fundamentals, are you different than maybe the rest of the industry in that we're still in this country below levels that we were putting out in 2019? So someone wasn't focusing on long-term fundamentals or misinterpreted whether we were going to be needing hydrocarbons till the middle of this century, in all likelihood. I mean, the world has a problem, Darren, and I don't know whether I wouldn't blame it on necessarily the oil companies, because you do what you got to do based on all these other factors. You say you don't care about administrations. I think you have to be watching what they're saying they're going to do, or else you wouldn't be satisfying shareholders. So it's difficult to navigate.
Well, I think, Joe, it's, in this environment, there's a lot of short-termism and pressure to move with what I would say the current narratives. So it's not an easy thing to do, and not everyone does it. And when you do move against the narrative and invest counter-cyclically, which is what was the strategy that we laid out in 2018, we took a lot of criticism for that. And so I think it's not an easy thing to do. I would also say it's not that we don't care about the administration. I didn't mean to imply that, if that's what you took away. It's simply that we don't cater to any specific political agenda, but instead look for these longer-term fundamentals. And then, of course, we work with the administration to try to help make sure they understand the fundamentals. And we recognize the political dynamics and try to help them address those without compromising what we believe are the long-term, the right answers.
Darren, I got two questions. One is, there is a anti-ESG movement taking place in some parts of the United States and maybe even around the world. We have a guest on, we've had him on a couple of times now, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's actually started a fund that is very explicitly trying to invest in fossil fuels and very explicitly trying to invest effectively against clean tech. What do you make of that effort?
Well, I think, we've gotten into this dynamic of where people are choosing sides. It's either right or left, right or wrong. And I continue to believe that, again, this is an and equation. We can do both. We can grow production and affordably and reliably meet the energy needs of people all around the world, while we continue to make progress in reducing emissions. We're certainly doing that, Andrew. We're growing our production while reducing emissions. I mentioned the CF Industries, a deal that we recently did. That's a profitable a project that's very attractive. It's in our portfolio. It makes us money, but at the same time reduces emissions. So good for the shareholders, good for the planet. So I think, the trick here is to leverage your core competencies, your competitive advantages, and then bring those to bear to help solve the world's problems and the challenges of the world. And we're basically trying to do that. And I think the capabilities that we've built over the decades position us very well to do that.
And then separately, Darren, I was hoping you'd weigh in geopolitically about Saudi, because we've been having a debate around this table, and I think it's been a debate around the country and the world for the past couple of weeks now. This report out from the New York Times that there was a deal effectively made by the Biden administration with the Saudis on production, in part for him to go over there and have that meeting with MBS, and that they've now gone back on that. Is Saudi our friend or not?
Well, I think if you step back and look at some of the stated policies of the Biden administration, where they have a longer term objective to put the oil and gas business in the U.S., to shut that down, that hands pricing power to OPEC. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised then when OPEC leverages and uses that pricing power. So I think what we ought to be focused on is not the political equation, but the long-term fundamentals. This is a national security problem. This is an economic problem, and ensuring that we have affordable and reliable energy here in the U.S. is, I think, a very high priority that the administration ought to focus on.